A Liberal government will prioritize significant new investment in affordable housing. We'll help build more housing units. Our government was elected on a commitment to make housing a priority. The federal government is not only back in housing, but we're here to stay for the long term. We're converting surplus federal lands to affordable housing. We will continue to step up to support Canadians. The federal government owns tons of land in cities and towns across the country. We can build a lot of homes on those lands. So that's what we're going to do.
Justin Trudeau announced he is stepping down both as Prime Minister and as leader of the country's ruling Liberal Party.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau may resign.
Justin Trudeau just announced his resignation as Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party. Standing before Canadians and the parliamentary press gallery, Trudeau revealed his decision to step down, which he described as being in the best interest of both the nation and the Liberal Party. His departure, however, is not immediate. Trudeau emphasized that his resignation would take effect only after the party completes a robust, nationwide process to select his successor, ensuring a smooth transition in leadership. As we move forward, I'd like to ask you a quick favor to subscribe and like this video. It takes just a second and helps us so much. Trudeau's tenure has been one of both achievements and challenges, including the difficulties of governing as the leader of a minority government. Having served in this capacity since the 2021 election, Trudeau has led the country through one of its most turbulent eras, navigating crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic and global economic uncertainty. Justin Trudeau's decision to resign as Prime Minister was not made lightly. In his announcement, he stated that it was a deeply personal and reflective process, backed by consultations with his family, who have been a constant source of support throughout his political career.
Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process.
As a leader, he often spoke of how his children and wife shaped his perspective on the work he did. It was clear in his remarks that his decision to resign was not just about political strategy or career considerations, but about aligning his personal and professional life in a way that served the greater good. Trudeau acknowledged that Canada, at this moment in history, was facing several challenges. From the economic impact of the pandemic to geopolitical tensions and climate change, the country requires a leader who can refocus on long-term solutions and bring Canadians together to face these pressing issues. Throughout his tenure as Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau was aware of the internal dynamics within his party, which ultimately played a significant role in his decision to step down.
As party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
He acknowledged that internal battles within the Liberal Party had become a barrier to effective leadership, particularly in the face of pressures from within the party itself. Disagreements over key policies, leadership style, and the direction of the party created divisions that weakened the unified front needed to govern effectively. At the same time, Trudeau did not shy away from criticizing Poilievre's vision for Canada, which he viewed as dangerously out of line with the values and aspirations of most Canadians. He was particularly concerned about Poilievre's stance on key issues like climate change and democracy. He argued that Poilievre's rejection of climate action and his attacks on institutions like the CBC and the media posed a direct threat to the values of unity and progress that Canada had long stood for. As Justin Trudeau reflected on his leadership, one of his most prominent regrets was his inability to implement electoral reform during his time in office. He had long advocated for changes to Canada's voting system, particularly the introduction of ranked choice voting, which he believed would help create a more representative and inclusive political environment. Ranked choice voting, in his view, could encourage voters to consider a broader range of candidates, moving away from the binary choice that often dominated Canadian elections. Despite the challenges and setbacks his government had faced in advancing climate action, Trudeau remained steadfast in his belief that Canada had a role to play in tackling the climate crisis. Trudeau also reflected on the importance of journalistic integrity in sustaining a healthy democracy. In an era of increasing misinformation and attacks on the media, he remained a defender of the role of journalists in holding power to account. He viewed journalism as a pillar of democracy, essential for ensuring transparency and upholding the values of truth and accountability. Looking to the future, Trudeau believes that Canada's best days are yet to come.
The Liberal Party of Canada is an important institution in the history of our great country and democracy. A new Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do for Canadians.
While he expressed regret over certain unfulfilled goals, his focus remained firmly on the need to continue pushing for progressive change and standing up for the values that had guided his leadership. Justin Trudeau's decision to discontinue Parliament was a significant moment in his resignation announcement. The prorogation, which was set to last until March, was intended to address the mounting stagnancy in Parliament that had paralyzed the legislative process for months. With Canada enduring its longest-serving minority government in history, the ongoing obstruction and lack of productivity have made it increasingly difficult for the government to move forward with its priorities. Trudeau recognized that the intense political tension and inability to pass key legislation were undermining the government's ability to serve Canadians effectively. As a result, the prorogation was seen as a necessary measure to allow time for the political temperature to cool and for a fresh start to be made. The break from regular parliamentary sessions would offer the space needed for reflection, negotiation, and the initiation of a leadership transition that would ultimately provide Canadians with a clearer path forward. However, the prorogation also comes with significant challenges for Trudeau's successor. With the leadership process only just beginning, the new leader would face a compressed timeline, as Parliament would reconvene with critical confidence votes scheduled for March. This would leave little time for the incoming leader to establish themselves in the public eye, build relationships within the party, and navigate the complex dynamics of the minority government. As Justin Trudeau reflected on his resignation and the future of Canada, his confidence in the resilience of Canadians was a main point.
I've been inspired by the resilience, the generosity, and the determination of Canadians. It is the driving force of every single day I have the privilege of serving in this office.
He said he had always been inspired by the spirit of the Canadian people, their determination, generosity, and their ability to come together in times of adversity. At the same time, Trudeau maintained a deep faith in the Liberal Party and its role in guiding Canada. He viewed the party not just as a political organization, but as an institution in Canadian democracy. Trudeau's message was not one of resignation in the traditional sense, but rather a reflection of his belief that this transition could lead to a more effective and unified government, with the potential for a new leader to bring fresh perspectives to the country's future. In his final thoughts, Trudeau conveyed a message of gratitude to Canadians for the opportunity to serve, acknowledging the immense privilege he had experienced throughout his tenure. Despite the challenges and controversies, he remained deeply committed to the idea of a Canada that stood as a beacon of progress and democracy on the world stage. One of the central topics that emerged during his speech was the internal dynamics of the Liberal Party, particularly the departure of Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. The press had a keen interest in the reasons behind Freeland's exit from her role as finance minister, with several reporters suggesting that it was a critical turning point in Trudeau's leadership. However, Trudeau responded with characteristic diplomacy, acknowledging that Freeland had been a valuable political partner throughout his tenure. Another prominent issue that arose in the press conference was the growing concern among opposition parties regarding the confidence votes set to take place in March. Journalists pressed Trudeau on whether he felt confident that his government could weather the storm, given that the opposition was prepared to bring down the government during these votes. Trudeau responded with assurance, emphasizing that he had a deep confidence in both his government and the Canadian political system. He pointed out that while the Liberal Party was operating in a minority government, the country's democratic institutions were resilient, and the leadership race would allow the party to refocus on governance. Beyond domestic issues, the world continues to face global crises that demand Canada's leadership and involvement. Trudeau's government, especially in its later years, worked to position Canada as a responsible global actor, advocating for climate action and democracy on the world stage. However, as climate change accelerates, geopolitical tensions rise, and trade networks become more fragile, Canada must be prepared to adapt to an increasingly volatile world. The next leader will also face the challenge of fulfilling some of the promises that Trudeau made, but could not fully deliver during his time in office.
If I have one regret, particularly as we approach this election, well, there are probably many regrets that I will think of, but I do wish that we'd been able to change the way we elect our governments in this country so that people could simply choose a second choice or a third choice on the same ballot, so that parties would spend more time trying to be people's second or third choices, and people would have been looking for things they have in common instead of trying to polarize and divide Canadians against each other. I think in this time, figuring out how to pull together and find common ground remains something that is really important for democracies, but I could not change unilaterally without support of other parties our electoral system. That wouldn't have been responsible.
One example is electoral reform, which Trudeau championed early in his leadership, but struggled to implement due to opposition and lack of consensus in Parliament. His successor will need to decide whether to revisit such initiatives or focus on new priorities that address the evolving needs of Canadians. Whether it's confronting the growing divisions in the political landscape, tackling the lingering economic aftershocks of the pandemic, or positioning Canada for future global challenges, the incoming leader will have a monumental task ahead. What do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.